this quad needs some tuning. Hi guys, welcome back to the part 2 for the Diatone Mamba flight control installation. This time we're going to be taking it out to the field to do some PID tuning on it. I just want to apologize up front. It's a little windy, so it's a little bit hard to hear me, so I'm doing the best in the audio to fix it. I think the information is really good, so you'll see step by step. I'll take it out to the field. Now I'll be out in the field running Betaflight using the SpeedyBee app. Okay, now let's get into Betaflight. As you saw, the quad was pretty wobbly. I didn't have any filters on. I didn't change any of the PID settings or anything like that. So we're going to look into Betaflight. Let's take a look. So first thing we need to do is go to bidirectional. Turn that on so we can turn on RPM filtering. Then we go down and you have to save and reboot. Going to reboot the flight controller. Then to know if it worked or not, you go into the motors tab. So you go to the motors tab. Then when you look at the motors, you'll see the percentage. So if each of the motors show the percentage, then that means there's communication between the ESCs, between the motors, ESCs, and the flight controller. Because before there was a separate connection. It had to be like a separate TX or RX pad. Now they just use the wires from the motors straight to the flight controller, so they kind of talk to each other. So in this case, we can see that you can see the 100% on here, and it looks like it's reading well. Now we have to go to the PID tuning tab, which is here. We're on that's a failsafe. Okay, now we're in the PID tuning tab. We're not going to touch the PIDs quite yet. We're going to keep them still at default, which is 1.1. Let's see, we have to turn off D-min because D-min's gonna, in this case the D-min's not too high yet, so we don't really need it. D-min's gonna be used if your D-max is pretty high. I'll let you know how to use that in a minute. But right now we're not going to use it because our D-min, our D value is in the 30s, which is considered low. So let's turn that off for now. Then we're going to go into the filters tab. And then we have to go down. So here you have the gyro filter. Everything's at 1.1 for now. We have the gyro low pass filter, the gyro filter 2. Those are by default turned on. And now you go to the RPM filtering. And now for the RPM filter harmonics number, you usually want to keep that at 2. So we change that to 2. And then for the dynamic notch, the percent width, percentage, 0. So we can change that to 0. Change the dynamic notch Q to 250. These are just the standard values that are good to start off with. By the way, I got these numbers from UAV Tech. I'll give the link at the bottom. You can dive deep into all this stuff. I just use how to start it off because it's safer. Because you have to remember for the RPM filtering, it filters out the harmonics, the frequencies. So like the low frequency would be something in the frame, and then your high frequency would be in the motor spinning. And the spinning part, that's what you have to kind of adjust. In this case, the dynamic notch Q is going to be 250 here, and then the higher raise this dynamic notch to 350. Actually lower it to 350 because it doesn't have to be that high. And plus, you want to minimize the filtering because if you have too much filtering, it's prop wash. In this case, we have to watch out for the motors. Change the filtering, and then you fly it, and make sure your motors are not too hot. We'll move it up to 2. We'll move it up to 1.2, and then we'll move the D term up to 1. Something's not working. Okay, there you go. That's 1.2, so that's good. So we'll save it. We are good to go. Let's go for flight number 2. So this flight, we changed the filtering. So the RPM filtering is now enabled. This bidirectional D-shot is turned on.
Armed. Engine off.
So everything's recording. Let's see what happens. Last time there was a lot of wobbles. We haven't really tested much yet. We have to get rid of the bounce backs because that's it's not good for the motors and definitely not good for flight. So we're going to fly it a little bit and check the motors. Bouncy like that, it means your eye term is, in this case the eye is pretty high, we need to raise the speed. And the wind doesn't help much, but it's kind of our ideal condition. It's pretty bouncy, look.
100 milliwatts, 25 milliwatts.
You have to change raise the P value a little bit.
3 minutes.
Okay. We're going to go straight to the PID tuning tab. Now the P is pretty low. The D is pretty low. Looks like the D min was actually on. It wasn't saved, so we're going to turn that off first. So D min is off. It seems a little bit wobbly, and the I term relax is a little low. It's at 15. We're going to bump it up to 20 to stiffen up the quad a little bit. The I term relax, you like to actually it's the I term relax cutoff. You want to actually go up like 3 to 5 steps at a time, not just 2. 2 might be too little. Go ahead and save that. Right now we have to find out the P and D balance. So it's good to start off a little lower because you don't want the D to raise up too high, so we lower the PD balance by 2 points. So we're down to 0.8, which sometimes is pretty good, but the P is still pretty low, so we're going to raise the PD gain a little bit higher, maybe 2 points. So when you change these sliders, you always want to do at least 2 minimum, but then you don't want to do more than that. 2 is usually pretty good, then you can test it out. I forgot to check my motors, but they seem pretty good right now. If they were hot, they'd be warm. Right now they're still cold, so that's a good sign. In fact, if they're cold, we have the P and D balance at 0.8. We raise the P and D gain to 1.2, so the P value, I'll put it up on the screen, is up to 50 and 55. So we're going to save that. And since the motors were pretty good, we're going to move the filter to the right more, meaning less filtering, because less filtering is going to be better prop wash handling. The only thing is your motors can get hotter. But we'll move it up one notch. So we'll go to 1.3 for both. This thing is quirky. It's usually not this quirky. Okay, here we go. 1.3, 1.3. So gyro's at 1.3. And we're going to test it out. We have that saved. Let's look at... When you use the app, you always want to save it twice and look at it a second time. Sometimes it doesn't save it. It depends. So I look at the PID bounce. It's still good. I'm looking at the filtering. We're at 1.3 now. We're not going to change any of the values. We could change, like we could turn off some of the gyro. In this case, we'll turn off gyro low pass filter 2 because the gyro low pass filters don't affect it as much as the RPM filtering. The RPM filtering is a lot more, does a lot more filtering than the gyros. In this case, it disabled our sliders, which is okay. We should be good. That's we still have the gyro filter low pass 1, but we'll stay there for now. Save this. Save it twice. We'll go to. Usually I don't make this many changes, but for some reason this wobble is kind of on the squad for some reason. I had the other F405, it didn't wobble this much. This was wobbling for some reason. But that's a good thing about tuning. You could change that and make it better. So. Okay, so it's spun out. So I have to make more changes. We have to put that filter back on. Okay, we're back into Betaflight. Looks like it's spun out. I'm not sure if the recording went through or not. I have a feeling it didn't. It was flying better. It still had a little bit of bounce back. Quite a bit of prop wash. Even when it turned. So what I'm going to do, it seems like the D value is a little low. But to be safe, I didn't like how it spun out in the end. I think the filtering has to be turned back on. So I'm putting the filtering on 1.3, which is fine, but I'm leaving the gyro low pass filter 2 on. See, that's okay. So as far as these values are okay. We'll save this and go back to the PID tuning profile. Now the D is a bit low, so we need to raise the PD balance a little bit. Maybe so now we have the PD at 36. Stick response is still at 1. We could leave that there for now. So now we have the P at 50. So the PD gain is 1.2. We can raise that to 1.3 and see how that works. So we'll save it. Make sure our filter is good. 1.3. Good. And save. Okay, hopefully it doesn't flip out again. So this could be flight number 4 after the quad flipped on landing, so hopefully it'll land better. Let's lower the camera angle. It's a bit too high. So we'll make it a little flatter since we're just testing it. Okay, now I have satellite. Moving satellites. We're going to go.
25 milliwatts.
The wind can make a huge difference. Right now it's great. Considering the wind. kind of change the, which works together with the P. Usually when the P is too low, it gets a little wobbly. That's why it was low before.
3
We do like a flip.
Milliwatts, 100 milliwatts, 25 milliwatts.
In our case, we want to tune this, we want to make it so it's nice and fluttering. Right now it's a little wobbly, but it should be the but it's definitely a lot better than when we first started.
100 milliwatts, 25 milliwatts.
Plan and see if it's gonna freak out. I'm not sure what I do. I think definitely a lot better. So it ran really well. It was a lot smoother, and like I said, it's hard to tell because it's windy. So looking at we're on the PID tuning tab again. We have the P at 55, D at 39. It's still a little bit, it's so hard to tell because of the wind. But let's increase stick response to 1.5. Right now our D gain is at 3942 pitch and roll, right? You don't want the D gain above 50. When you have it above 50, that's when it starts getting a little crazy, and you can tell right away because when you turn on, you arm your quad, it's going to wobble and make some really crazy sounds. And once you hear that, it's time to turn it off, or it's going to hurt your motors or burn it up or something, right? That also has to do that. The same thing's going to happen if your filtering is too low. If you don't have enough filtering, you're going to get instant wobbling, weird sounds once you arm. In our case, it's very minimal, but I'm going to say part of it's because of the wind. So I'm raising the P a little bit from 1.2 to 1.3, leaving the PD bounce at 1, raising the stick response a little bit to 1.5. I term relax, we're going to keep it at 20 for now. I don't think we should change that. Gravity is about the same. That's very minimal. So we're going to save it twice. We could look at filtering again. Let's see. We're not going to mess with rates right now. That's just more for performance. We're not going to do any of that right now. We could change it to 1.4 for the filtering. It's going to go red on me a little bit, but that's okay. At least it's not off. I think for some reason when we turned out the gyro low pass filter, I don't know, it made the quad do a flip and roll that I've never done before. So the filtering is a little bit less, so hopefully less, a little bit of better prop wash, because I think there's a little bit still, so we need to get rid of that. So we'll save this. So now we're up to 1.5. Some people go up to 2. In this case, we already saw how it was when we turned off the gyro, so we'll go 1.4. I think that's safe. We'll save that. Make sure the PID is good. The PID profile. And let's take it for a spin. Okay, we have it on now, I think. Oh, it's red. Let's change the battery. Hold on.
You walk.
And take off. that minute stopwatch when you...
100 milliwatts. 25 milliwatts.
Like I said, it's wobbling because of the wind, but it's really a lot smoother than when we started. When it's not as windy.
3 minutes.
As you can see, those are pretty much the steps to take when you first install the flight controller. Makes a big difference. It's flying really well right now. The wind's kind of somewhere else, so I can tell it's
100 milliwatts.
No oscillations either.
Milliwatts.
It's flying actually really well. Good for landing. Got to test the motors.
1,000 milliwatts.
It's not hot.
500 milliwatts.
You can call it good.
200.
Like I said, I just have to fine tune it later.
100 milliwatts. 2
Tricky landing here. Hey guys, so I apologize about the wind. It was so windy. It was really hard to hear me on most audio. So as a recap, we added the filtering. Then we raised the P gain because it was a little too low, which caused a lot of the wobbling on the quad. We increased the D term also because the D term also stabilizes once you raise the P gain. The D term is going to stabilize the increases from the P as well. And in addition, we increased the I term relax cutoff up to 20 to make the quad run a little bit stiffer. In the end, it looks like it ran a lot better than in the beginning. The changes that we made a huge improvement. But all I could say is I definitely have to retune it another day when it's not so windy, because obviously when it's windy the quad runs a little bit differently. So hopefully it'll run a little bit better next time. But you know, I'm pretty happy with the tune. Let me know in your comments what you think about it, and if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.